Hello, my friends. How are you? Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. We're talking about change today. Let me just update this here. Talking about change. If you are going through a transition, a pivot, a shift in your business, this is for you. I'm going to be talking about this forever, never, never, because I just think it's so, so, so important. And today's going to be a little bit short. We're having some Wi-Fi challenges here on the island, and I don't want to overstay my welcome with the fact that it's been working for the last several hours, but it doesn't seem to work consistently. I tend to get booted off after 30 minutes, so I'm going to cut myself shorter than normal. So let's talk about change today. If you're going through a transition in your business, a pivot, or anything that feels like a shift for you, what I want to talk about today, we've been talking about change, we've been talking about transition a lot lately, and that's a lot of the work that I do. That's a lot of the topics that you're going to be continuing to hear from me in the future. And I think I had mentioned on another live, I'm getting ready to start an interview series. So if you're going through a transition right now, or you've been through one yourself, and you're interested in paying it forward, sharing your story for other people. But I also find that most of the time when people share their stories, when we have a moment to really reflect and have a conversation with someone, in this case me, around what we've gone through, even if the experience that you had is you're sharing a story of a past transition or pivot in your business. What I find is that as we start to verbalize it at that moment in time, as we start to have a conversation and try to explain it to somebody else, we start to have aha moments. And that's really my hope and intention with this interview series, is that the person being interviewed will get something out of it, in addition to, of course, being able to promote their business and get some exposure for their work, but also to be able to pay it forward in this group. So if you are going through a transition, if you're going through a pivot, or if you've already done this in your business, most people, I think, who've been in business for more than a year have already usually gone through some sort of pivot or transition already. And so if you'd like to talk to me about it, I'll put the link here in the comments afterwards, but just hop on a free brief call with me, share your experience. We'll see sort of where I'm talking to a lot of people who've been interested in this, but I'm still open to speaking to more people. So just because I'm talking to a lot of people doesn't mean that you can't hop on a call with me. And what I'm most interested in is sharing the different experiences and the commonalities in our experiences. So I will be looking for sort of what's unique about your experience, but also what is relatable about your experience and as in your transition, because what I find is there are so many more commonalities than differences. So I will be putting together a series with some thought and some organization around how I present the people and how we do that in a specific order, but that's for me to figure out. So if you're interested, let me know. I will put the puzzle pieces together and if we can put you out on here. So the first interview is coming. I will have 1 or 2 this month, so look out for that at this time. So anyway, what I want to talk to you about today is this concept of going through a change, going through a transition that feels positive. So for example, I think a lot of times change, and I'm almost like grabbing my stomach as I say this, I think a lot of times change for people is very upsetting. It's destabilizing, it's confusing, right? Especially if we're going through a change that we don't feel that we're driving. And I find so oftentimes when our inspiration, when our what we're interested in, the direction, when our fulfillment starts to shift in a direction, even though that's coming from within you, sometimes you can feel a little bit like it's got you by the, like it's leading you. and that you're not in charge and you're not in control. And you, of course, are in control of your own life. But there is this feeling sometimes, especially when we're in a creative process. And I believe that all big changes, really are, actually everything in life is a creative process. And the more that we can look at it that way and give ourselves grace and space around the fact that it is most of the time not a linear process. We are given so many things, especially in North America, around, following processes and having formulas and models and things. And while I think a lot of times those things are very helpful for us to make sense of something, and there's plenty of transition models out there. I use them all the time in my work. But we tend to start to look at things as a linear, formulaic, structured, predictable thing. And creativity is the exact opposite of structured and predictable and formulaic. And yet, because we're running a business and because there is something tangible here, for some reason, our society tends to make us think that we need to do something in some sort of predictable way, change your business in some sort of predictable structure. And the truth is your business is creative, and your process of running a business is always going to be a creative process. Whether you decide, whether you're like aware of it or not, it's already more of a creative process than a predictive formulaic process. And so I think the more that we can sort of recognize that and hold that as a truth, the easier we can be on ourselves for not going through something, that might feel messy, that might feel confusing. And I've been talking about the messiness and the confusion of transition, and that's also what I want to be speaking about, and I'll be asking people about during this interview series that's coming up. But today I actually want to talk about sort of the shadow side of like good transitions, because I think we think, especially when we're looking at somebody else's transition from afar, or we're thinking about it philosophically. I think a lot of times when we're going through a change that is a positive change, we tend to think that it's not going to affect us. It's not going to affect us in a big way, that it's kind of not a big deal. And while I'm not one to make a mountain out of a molehill, I think we absolutely can do that. And I think those of us who do mindset work, who do healing work, because we're so, like for me, I'm so interested in psychology, because we're so interested in what makes people tick and how people behave, and because we're so good at pointing out, the things that other people are avoiding, we might tend to even go look more deeply at like trying to overanalyze things. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, I just went through a move. If you can't tell, I'm in a new room. This is my office, but it's not quite set up yet all the way. We're doing it phase 1, as I said last week. And one of the funny things that I've been laughing about this for the last few weeks as I've been moving. Now, number one, I've moved a lot in my day. I actually went back and counted in the last 24 years. This is my 14th home in 24 years. And I'm not counting I'm counting places that I've lived for a year or more. So I've had a couple of actually I've had several very interim places to live. Like when I moved to a new city, I would live for somewhere for a month or two until I found the right place to live. So I'm not counting that. So 14 times in the last 24 years, I've moved. That's a lot of moving. I've moved states. I've moved across the country in the United States 3 times. I'm now living in another country, so I've moved abroad. I came here with 3 suitcases and my cat. So I'm really pretty good at not having too many belongings, going through my belongings and making good decisions about what I'm actually going to use and what I'm not. I really do not tend to hoard much. I do have some stuff from my childhood. I do have some things that I have held on to for many, many years, but for the most part, that, especially when compared to a lot of other people, that is not a process that's particularly hard for me. It's something that I've done a lot and I'm used to it. And so when I moved this time, to this new place, I was really underestimating for me what that impact of that change would be, because I've done this so much, and this is something that I just have kind of typically done every 2 to 3 years. And way, I think moving is in the air. I've been talking to a lot of people who are moving to new places, or just moved to a new place. All that is to say, I'm going to use this as the example, and we can translate this into business, that just because a transition or a change is positive, just because it's known, just because it's something that we've done before, every single time you do something, it is different, right? You can't cross the river in the same place twice. You can't heal the same limiting belief in the same way. When you have an old limiting belief come up, or something that you've worked through before in your life, a common theme that you've worked on in your life, when it comes up again, you're not going backwards. It's not that you didn't heal anything. It's that you're being given an opportunity to heal it at a deeper level. There's like that, that spiral of that topic, rather than sort of a progression, or let's just call it like a predictive structured way of healing yourself, right? So just because, I guess my point is, or I know that my point is, just because I find that when we are going through positive change and positive transition, and I see this in my own business, I see this in my clients' businesses, sometimes we're going through a big change and it feels messy, and we may or may not know where we're going. We're shifting our vision and we don't know where. We're very aware that we're sort of in the mess, right? In the confusion, in the thick of it. But when we do know where we're going, and we've done something like this before, and we're pretty confident in our abilities, and we're not, it's not so new of an idea within doing something new, we can tend to underestimate the impact that it's going to have on us. And so I'll use this move as an example, but again, I think it translates really beautifully to change in business, because as I underestimated the impact of the move. Now, was the move hard for me? No, I have really actually quite enjoyed this process. Yes, I have had my moments, just like anybody, but this has not felt like a messy transitional time. It has felt like change. It has felt like I've had a lot of things to do and to touch all my belongings and to move and to find new homes for them. But it has been a positive transition. I'm excited about this new place that I'm living in and my new circumstances. And so this is all really, really good. And it's something that I have confidence in. But what I underestimated was things like the amount of time and energy I have to do all of my normal life things, right? My personal life and my professional life have both been adjusted just in terms of time alone, but the energy. And so today's topic is about the energy of change, not the energy of change moving through you, but what happens in your energy field when you go through a change. And I find so oftentimes those things that we think are the small elements of a change, can be the things that slam you energetically, or that simply, again, this is a positive change. This has all really been good. But I have been really sort of energetically worn out. I have had to spend a lot more time recovering physically and energetically, because this is such a big change for me. It's not about the actual move, right? It's about shifting into a new space, creating new habits and new autopilots, creating new ways of being. And I typically find too that I think things like moves, pivots in our businesses, et cetera, often come right on the heels of, or at the same time as, a internal up level. That's why I'm a mindset coach first and a business coach second, because I find that mindset is really the biggest piece of running a heart-centered business. And so when we up level internally in our mindset, and then we start to see the manifestation of that up level in all the various ways, because it usually affects your life and business in ways that you can predict and ways that you can't, ways that will surprise you in really good ways. As those things start to ground in and come into fruition, there is a period of time where we are receiving that, where we are integrating it, where we are getting used to that, the new, right? So as you get used to the new chapter and all its various layers, there is an energetic component to it. And I'm speaking strictly around like, we all only have so much energy to go about our days. And so today's message is really just a reminder that when you're going through a transition in your business, and you can for sure use this in your life too, even when, and especially when it is a good transition, it is a thing that you're considering to be good and exciting, there's nothing really that you need to do differently other than I just want to remind you. And look, you guys, I've been studying change my whole life. I've been working in the field of change my whole career, and I've changed lots and lots and lots of things in my life. I call myself a change junkie. And even I was reminded of this as I've been going through the last few weeks of this move, because it is sort of a surprise. It's counterintuitive to say, well, I'm really, really excited about this, so I'm just going to move forward and everything will be fun and exciting. And even when it is, there is an energetic toll. There is I think a surprise of, oh my gosh, like I didn't realize, in a good way, I didn't realize how much I needed to change this particular habit until I was forced to, just because I wake up on a different, side of the island and the sun is in a different way or whatever it is. All of a sudden, new things that you need. Or I also think like things that happen in your old chapter, right? Like my old apartment, there were things that never really bothered me before, but as I was closing things out in that old place, it was like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have to deal with this little quirk here, right? Like where the lamp is over here or whatever it is. Those things that you just sort of deal with and put up with, you start to go, oh, I'm really, happy to release that in a way that I almost didn't expect, and wouldn't have thought that like that lamp thing was going to bother me or was going to affect me. And then similarly, I didn't realize that having more space was really going to be that much of an adjustment. This is a bigger place. That's great. What's the problem? There is no problem. And there is an adjustment to moving into a new space and to holding bigger space, right? Here, feel the symbolism here. So same with your business. If you're holding bigger space now in your new chapter and you're already stepping into this new phase in your business, even if all it is you go from being halfway fully booked to being fully booked, there is an energetic toll that it takes in a good way, but it's something to just pay attention to, because I find that it takes us all by surprise. This concept that you really still have to give yourself time and grace and space and energy to adjust to the new. Just because you're making a good change doesn't mean it's not an adjustment. And there's nothing wrong with underestimating, but I think when we give ourselves moments to really, for me, it's about ritual. For me, it's about, like in this example, I closed out my time in my apartment by myself, and I did a little bit of a ritual for myself to symbolize to my subconscious mind, to symbolize to myself, and to really acknowledge with strong intention the closing of that chapter, and to have gratitude and appreciation for everything that happened in that time period. And then to open up the new space and to have some sort of ritual, whatever that means to you, to do something intentional. Because there are not often very many transitions that we go through where there is a day where you're closing a chapter and opening a new one. You can just make that happen intentionally with some sort of ritual, with some sort of intention setting, with some sort of 5 minute of closing of your eyes and just imagining that chapter being complete, appreciating it, acknowledging yourself for what you went through in that chapter, and then setting some clear intentions and opening a new chapter. And so when we do that, it sort of starts to help our brains, it set new patterns, it starts to set new habits, it starts to help you when you set new intentions. It really helps your subconscious mind to move more fully into the new, because so oftentimes the nature of transition, this is very much the way it operates. We're both in the old and the new at the same time as we kind of waft from old to new. And then it's like more new, less old, more new, less old, and then we're all the way in the new, right? And so when we can set some clear intentions, when we can take some time to acknowledge ourselves for what we've done and accomplished and what we're doing now with some real intention, have a conversation with somebody, spend some quiet time with yourself, do some journaling, do some meditation. A lot of people like to burn things. I'm a big fan of that as well when that's appropriate for the environment that you're in. Taking time to just intentionally close a chapter and intentionally open a chapter. You can choose an arbitrary time. It's just, it doesn't really matter. It's your life. Is really, really important. And it will help your body, mind, and soul adjust to the new space, whatever that means to you. So take a little advice from my move. And again, I see this just, it happens so much when we go through a transition in business. It happens so much when we go through transition in life, because we are underestimating what we're going to, the amount of time we're going to need, the amount of energy we're going to need in order to close the old, transition, meaning manage both, and then opening the new. You really are, in the same way that I often recommend to my clients who are going through transition, that they start to look at the transition itself as a job, as a project. Because when we think about taking on a new client, right, or taking on a new project, or adding another job, so to speak, then we start to give it the credence that it deserves, right? There's time, energy, effort, thought work around that, right? Similarly to when you're pregnant, right? When you're pregnant, you are eating for two, your energy is being used up by two people, right? You're actually growing a person while you're just also doing your regular life and work stuff. And so you've been given a big project, and when you don't take naps when you need to, or whatever it is that you need to do to rest your body as a pregnant person, you aren't giving yourself the ability to effectively grow this person inside you, because you're sort of pretending like, yeah, it's there and all, but I'm still me, and I just need to do my 7,000 things during the day, right? So when you're going through transition, if you can give it credence to have its own, like, open some space. I definitely, you guys saw me a lot less online. I definitely pulled back from work. I had the same number of hours per week dedicated to my clients, but I changed the way that I adjusted my schedule so that I could focus on clients and then focus on the move, so that my brain was sort of still able to do my job and support, but that I was setting aside clear time for the move during work hours. And I said no to some personal like things with friends and stuff, so that I would have the extra time, right? Very, very simple. But when we treat it like a project, as a transition. And so my move, yes, that's a personal thing, but it did affect my business because I had to move my office, right? When you're going through a transition, if you give yourself that time and space to do a little extra journaling, to zone out and sort of see like where it is that you're going in your next chapter, when you give yourself a little bit of space in your calendar energetically, so time and energy typically being the number one things, then we're really let's see. Can you still see me? Oh, it looks like I came back. Okay, I'm on the same chat. Okay. Sorry, and thank you for sticking with me. So I wonder what I was saying. I was 2 seconds away from closing that out. Let's see. Yeah, when we take the time and energy to treat a transition like a project, however you want to look at that in your business, and it depends on what type of transition you're going through, but when you do treat it like a project, meaning you recognize that time and energy need to be dedicated to your transition, I find that it goes much smoother, it goes much easier, because when you simply just take the transition and you add it on to everything else that you have going on in your personal life and your professional life, you start to run a little bit ragged. And so you're working more hours in the day, even if it's just your brain thinking through the transition. But you're also not giving yourself time and space to create new habits, to ground in the new, to complete the old, whatever needs to happen there. So I hope this is helpful, whether you're going through a transition in your business that feels fun and exciting, or whether you're feeling sort of messy and confusion energy and, full on messy transition. All of it is good. Give yourself that time and space to treat it like a project. Set some clear intentions around how you're going to do this while also doing all the other things that you're doing in your life. And then your transition will be just much easier, much cleaner, and it will help your adjustment into the new, because even if you're already like I am, I'm already here and complete in this, in the move itself is complete, all my belongings are in the house. That doesn't mean that I'm all the way settled. It doesn't mean that I have everything living, in the closet that I want it to live in. And it doesn't mean that, that I've adjusted into my new patterns and ways of being in the home. And so when you're giving yourself that time and space to do that in your business, it's just going to serve your business. And frankly, it's also, I think sometimes we get lost in a conversation around service. And I don't want to talk about service very much today, but I just want to briefly say, I think then we start to lose then we start to lose track of where we're going in our transition, because we're so focused on the transition, or we're so focused on getting all the other things done, that we may or may not be sacrificing the energy that we would typically give to our clients, to our customers, to our craft. And so having some really good boundaries with that, in terms of how you manage your time and your energy during that time. You may also choose to slow down at some level, to pause something and pick it back up a month later. You may choose to not take on as many new clients as you normally would at that period of time. There's all kinds of ways that you can adjust. It doesn't mean that you need to make less money. It doesn't mean that you need to work less, but it does mean that you can think that through for your business. How much do I still have the energy that it takes to give amazing customer service, to support my clients to the greatest level that I can, while also going through this transition? Yes or no? Okay, yes, I can, but I do need to make some changes so that I can continue to serve them at the same level. Because if you're going to lose your service level to your clients, then the impact of your transition is not going to take you where you want to go, right? So if you're not going to do it, this is the other way I like to say it. Like, if you're not going to do the right thing for yourself and take care of yourself as a business owner, maybe you'll do it if you think about the perspective of taking care of your clients, taking care of your children, right? If you're maxing out your energy by adding a new project, and if you're not considering your transition a project, it absolutely is, then you're doing a disservice to your children, you're doing a disservice to your clients, and I know that's not your intention. So giving yourself the grace and space to do that. Let me know how this lands with you. I'd love to know if you're in a transition and you're interested in sharing your story. As I said, I will put the link in here. I'm also still offering, I think I'm going to offer this at least until the end of the year, but there's only a couple of slots per month available. If you're interested in hopping on, I'm calling it One Powerful Conversation. If you're interested in hopping on a call with me and getting some private coaching in a short period of time, I typically work with my clients for 3 to 6 months, but right now I'm really enjoying having an opportunity to work with more people at a time, having an opportunity to make a bigger difference and to really help these transition conversations are perfect for this one powerful conversation. It's a full week of intensive coaching. You get me through emails in between sessions. And it's just an opportunity. It's my former, I used to call it my coaching intensive. I sort of changed the way the program works and really give you an opportunity to get some dedicated, intensive focus, one-on-one private coaching around you, your business, your mindset, and give you a good leg up on where it is that you're going for the rest of the year and into the new year. So if you're going through a transition and you're looking for some additional clarity, or you're just looking for some movement on your sort of internal processes of where you're going, these conversations are really, really helpful. And I will put the link in the chat here as well. You can, the first thing, the easiest way to do it is to just hop on a discovery call with me, just make sure that we're a good fit for working together. But I would love, it's $800. I would love to support you. We really, you know, I've done a lot of long-term coaching. That's really my specialty, but I find that with these short-term relationships, because of the focus that we both put into it, I find that it can really help to move the needle for you. It can really be the difference in feeling messy and confused and having that super clarity around, I not only know where I'm going now, but I've sort of tweaked my mindset around that, and I have some plans in place as far as how I'm going to get there. And that confidence and that knowledge of I've got it now is, I think, what can make or break the next chapter of your business. So I would love to support you in that. Hop on a call with me, and I will see you guys next week. Same time, same place. Have a great week. Talk soon.